Good morning, students. Today our lesson is finishing our narratives. That is our goal for today. So today what you're challenged to do is to use all of the lessons that we've had so far to finish your narrative. And just for everyone's memory, I'm going to make a comment on this assignment of the things that we've learned so far. What I'd like for you to do right now is use the chat of the Google Meet to type some of the things and lessons we've learned so far while writing our narratives. This part will not be filmed. I'm going to pause the film and then come back. And if you're in Mrs. Rockowitz's class, you could also pause and then come back after you've built your list. Okay, so the lessons that we've learned so far include, we talked about different points of view that we could write using. We talked about using and developing setting in our narratives. We talked about using and developing characters in our narratives. We also talked about using dialogue in our narratives. Finally, we talked about conflict, the climax, and building suspense. The final thing that you should think of as you're ending your narrative is the lesson that you will teach. So, using what you've learned in the last month and a half, you're going to finish writing your narrative today. What I gave to help you here is my narrative. I would like to read you my narrative so you have an example. And this is what your final product should look like. You will get a grade for just finishing it. Then next week, we're going to revise it and edit it and clean it up and make it look like it could be published in a professional book. And then you'll submit it for a final test grade. So this assignment will account for not just one grade, but multiple grades, because you're going to get a grade for just doing it rough, and then you're going to get a grade for your best final draft. Here is my picture. So pretend I am one of you. I'm a student in Mrs. Pagano and Mrs. Rudder's class. Here is the picture that I chose. There was the title of the picture and who took it. And here was the caption that National Geographic published with the picture. None of that is my own writing or work. Here is where my work starts. Okay, I'm going to read it to you. As I'm reading it, I want you to think about the lessons that we learned and what I used. Point of view, setting, characters, conflict, and suspense. Setting, point of view, setting, characters, conflict, and suspense. Sumi stood in the dusty, crowded, run-down train station of Dhaka, Bangladesh, in the mid-afternoon of a sweltering day in the late spring. Summer was not far away. Just 1 month ago, she was married to a man she barely knew. His name was Hassan. Both of their families agree they were a nice couple, but Sumi and Hassan had no say in the decision. Sumi was wearing her best and most cherished dress, a beautiful combination of sunflower yellow and ruby red. She stood out from her dirty surroundings, but in the extreme heat, her dress was quickly becoming wet with sweat and wrinkled. There was a stale, sour smell in the train station due to the intense heat and overcrowded condition. The noise at the train station was deafening. Sumi could barely think straight, but her face looked serious, as though she was trying desperately to work something out in her head. People were rushing in all directions to catch the train. Each time a person passed, she could feel the heat of their body. It made her even more uncomfortable. Everyone was going home for the festival of Eid. Hassan easily spotted Sumi. The sun was shining on her. He was impressed by her beauty and his luck in finding such a lovely wife. He knew he was a little late, but his last rickshaw passenger had insisted on going to a distant suburb and Hassan had been delayed. Sumi looked worried, but he would explain to her, and they would try to enjoy the ride home for Eid where his family waited for them. He knew his mom would not be pleased if they were very late. When he walked up to her, Sumi realized she must speak. She must somehow convince him. Hassan, I have something to tell you, she stated quietly. Yes, Sumi? I want to go to college, she stammered, blushing fiercely. It is my dream. I love my studies and I want to become a nurse. Please tell me you and your family will let me do that. Hassan was stunned. But Sumi, I will make enough money for us and our children. In my family, the women do not go to college. It is a distraction from all the duties at home and at the temple, Hassan commanded. You'll see, you won't have time for college, he laughed. Come on, we need to get on the train, he dictated. Yes, I will, she replied. I will have time. I will work hard, you'll see, Sumi responded with a serious tone. Hassan felt a flame of anger in his chest. Are you disagreeing with me? Are you thinking of disrespecting me in front of my parents? Why didn't you tell me this before? No, but I need you to understand, she begged. We never had the time to discuss it before. If I become a nurse, I will help so many people and I'll make money for the family too. Our children will have a brighter future, don't you think so? Hassan was seriously angry now. You do not disrespect me. You do not think I can take care of us, he thundered and turned away, ready to leave her there, when he saw a pathetic woman sitting in the dirt, surrounded by raggedy children, one filthy hand outstretched. Please, sir, she moaned. Hassan froze. In a panic, he realized he knew her. He knew the beggar. She was Rimi, a girl he had played with once as a child. That's yours. When he was waiting for the train, she was older, but she still had the same face, and he knew it was her. And now this. Hassan stared at Rimi the beggar. He stared at her, but he could not speak. Hassan turned back to Sumi, seeing the concern and strength in her face. Sumi returned her husband's facial expression with serious, unmoving eyes and a powerfully confident pose. She felt as though she was shooting a dart with her eyes into his eyes. She wanted him to see. Wait, her mind was drifting. What did she want him to see? She felt her face losing its power. Hassan, still frozen, saw sadness drop into his wife's face. She seemed to carry a burden, he thought. The entire world around them kept moving so fast, but Hassan felt like he and Sumi were somehow frozen in time, in this moment together. Her eyes were telling him something. Sumi took a deep breath in and regained her confidence. I want him to see how the world looks through the eyes of someone with a compassionate heart, she thought to herself. Sumi reached into the beautiful orange saffron waves of her dress and pulled out a few coins. She never once took her eyes off of Hassan, as though her eyes could communicate to him the cruelty of ignoring those less fortunate than himself. With her eyes locked on Hassan until the very last second when she released the coin into the woman's hand, Sumi handed the woman some money and spoke gently to her. Sumi looked at her husband. He hugged her to him and felt how fortunate he was. Yes, Sumi, yes, you will go to college. That is my narrative. As I was reading, I hope that you noticed that I wrote in third person. I developed two characters with one third character, but really that my two main characters were Sumi and Hassan. I used character description and I also used dialogue to show what they would say to each other as well as what they were thinking in their heads. I put a conflict in that went against the culture, was that she wanted to go to college, but typically in the culture when I was researching Bangladesh, women didn't go to college. I also put in another conflict with the beggar woman to show my theme, which is that you should afford opportunities to those who are less fortunate than yourself. You're going to try to finish your narrative and use these elements in your own personal way. If you need any help, please ask Mrs. Rudder, myself, or Mr. Cook.